What is happening, my friends? Hey, what's going on? It's Cooper. Another new episode of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast about to get underway. And this episode is brought to you by Monster Energy, and not just energy drinks anymore. Did you know that? Yeah, even though I'm a big fan of course, Ultra Sunrise and any of the Zeros, now Muscle Monster and Monster Hydro. Doing the workout thing, looking to get fit, hydration is key, getting your lean protein is key, and now Monster has got you taken care of on both fronts with Muscle Monster and Monster Hydro. Because not only are you getting the hydration your body needs after a workout or intro workout, you're also getting a little boost to energy. Same thing with Muscle Monster. Protein you need and the energy you need to get through. Check out monsterenergy.com or search for Muscle Monster on Facebook and Instagram and the Twitter. This show is also brought to you by Violent Gentlemen Hockey Club. The Violent Gents, rocking some VHGC gear today. Nobody likes us and we don't care. I had that sticker on my Jeep forever. I still have it on my Jeep. Now I got the gear to go with it. Check out Violent Gentlemen on Instagram, also violentgentlemen.com, the website. All the cool lines of products that they have. If you're a hockey fan, they probably got something for your team to throw that hockey attitude that you usually spit with your mouth. Now you can say it loud and proud with your clothing line. Again, look for Violent Gentlemen on all social media platforms and violentgentlemen.com. We got some cool stuff coming up with some new sponsors going to be jumping on the show, including Midwest Meals and Holistic Remedies, Beard Oil, and CBD, so stand by for more stuff on that. And not only are we going to have information for you to pass along, but some savings as well and some giveaways as well. That stuff is all coming in the very near future. Very excited for this week's episode of the Welcome to Cooperville podcast. Longtime friend Zeb Christensen of the band Screaming for Silence joins me. We talk about a whole bunch of things, including his love for the Raiders. How does a guy born in Iowa become a Raiders fan? We'll find out. New episode starts right now.
Welcome to Cooperville.
Do you know what's fun to do in Cooperville? Pack up your shit and get the fuck out!
Listen. www.welcometocooperville.com. Who the fuck says www anymore? I can't even say it. www. Stop that. The Welcome to Cooperville podcast. On demand anywhere quality podcasts are available. And some places where cheap podcasts are available.
And the local gas station has some.
Subscribe, get updates, feel better about your life. Welcome to Cooperville.com. Check.
Welcome to Cooperville. Make sure you use a coaster. The wife gets upset when we leave rings on the tables.
I remember the first time I met Zeb Christensen. There was a wedding in our peripheral vision. There was a crazy lady, very dedicated to her cause and to her love and to music. And Zeb and Screaming for Silence happened to be in that same peripheral vision at the same time. And somehow, not only did we unify a friendship, but we unified two people in the alleyway of holy matrimony.
Absolutely.
That about sums it up, doesn't it?
You nailed it.
We will get into that story as we get through this podcast. But Zeb Christensen, Screaming for Silence. Hey, buddy, thank you. Good to see you.
Man, thanks for having me. It's great to see you too, man. Always great.
How have things been? It's been a minute since we've gathered our thoughts together.
Things have been good, man. Things have been good. Just lots of life stuff going on, and still keeping Screaming for Silence going and keeping the ball moving, man.
I've been seeing that. People getting married, people popping out children. It's like the family is expanding over there.
Yes. I don't know if it's contagious or what the deal is, but we got, Casey got married and Danny just got engaged and Matt, our drummer, just had a little baby girl. And so everything's going on like crazy, man, which is good. It's great to see. We're all happy and happy for each other. And that's always great. So,
and have you officiated all these weddings? Do they just call you up like?
I did do Casey and his wife, Bridget. I did do their wedding. They got married in Las Vegas.
Nice.
So we went down to the Strip and unified their love. And man, it was fun. It was a blast. I think it was a blast for the most part.
The details are a little bit sketchy at this point.
Let me think about that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on camera somewhere.
Yeah, the wedding part was great. It was just maybe the after part that got a little gray, but
and it's very Casey-like, and we'll get into my Casey stories here too. But the wedding in Vegas, I don't think I would have imagined it any other way.
Right,
It's
correct.
fitting.
Right, yeah.
Cool, man. Well, lots to catch up on, and the really cool thing about this, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit before we started rolling here, is this is really just about telling stories, and a lot of times getting to go back to remembering when music found its way into your life, and how how the industry it can be amazing and how it can be horrific. But for you, Iowa kid, right? Is that right? Iowa?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Born and raised in Iowa.
And to be honest, and whenever anybody tunes in and listens to this podcast, because you can listen anytime, anywhere fine podcasts are sold, I am doing my podcast with you as the Wisconsin Badgers are kicking off their season. So I just want to tell you, on a level of how much I love you, like if my wife would have said, hey, we have this family dinner to go to about 6 o'clock on Friday, I'd have been like, ooh,
yeah,
fucking Badger game's on, babe. Like tell them I said hi, but
right. But we're doing this, and they're playing right now.
Yeah, man.
Are they honored? Oh man, I feel honored.
You get Zeb Christensen nailed down. You're like, fuck, man, I gotta put that shit's on the calendar in ink. We didn't pencil it in.
I think I did that on purpose to you when we set the time for this. Like, I'm gonna make them miss a Badgers game. Just
right,
to do this.
Fucking Hawkeyes, man. Just going out.
Just diva. I'm just being a big diva like that.
Yeah, it's okay. Musicians, all you fuckers are the same. But no, so growing up in Iowa, and again, I think Midwesterners and as a whole, even though we do obviously hold our rivalries in the sports field and things like that, but there's a certain like growing up part that we kind of all, I think, travel a lot of the same paths. But what was Zeb like as a youth, as a youngster?
Yeah, man, we grew up on a farm. I mean, typical Iowa stuff, man. Grew up on a farm, horses, cows, pigs, all the works, and just kind of grew up in the sticks of Iowa. And I moved around a little bit as a kid, and then played all the sports, football, basketball. They always say that the Midwest kids are big, strong athletes, corn-fed. So, I actually got into the sports side of things, and then that really transitioned into music later on, after I grew up a little bit. So,
it doesn't hurt that you're 7 feet fucking tall.
Yeah. That's one thing we'll talk about a ton about is that, we always claim that we'll beat anybody in basketball because we're all really tall, being from the Midwest, and bands I think from the coast and stuff that we always toured with and played with. Just that's the first thing they would all say is, "You guys are freaking monsters!" Like, what do they feed you? Just corn and potatoes, man. That's
whatever's on the table and you eat it.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You finish what's on your plate, young man. Go be big and strong.
100%. That was growing up for sure.
Did you have was there a particular sport that you and obviously people will lean basketball just because of the height factor, but you're built, you can throw some people around. Where did you, like in your high school years, or where was your passion level as far as sports goes?
So I moved high schools when I was a sophomore. I really didn't want to play football, but I ended up playing football. And the high school I went to, we had a great football team. We were state champions my sophomore year and went to state my junior and senior year. I got talked into playing, and I ended up playing center, which I wasn't as big as I was back then, but we were from a small school and played center. And then basketball was really my passion throughout high school and growing up. And that's really where I kind of, I ended up playing college basketball for a few years and doing that as well too. So
where did it, and we'll jump all around here and jump back to youth and music. Where did the fandom, appreciation, love, adoration, fanaticness for LA teams on the West Coast, how did that find its way into your Iowa blood?
That's a very good question. First off, I remember as a child getting a Nintendo, which was like a huge deal for everybody when you got your first Nintendo, and super Tecmo, man. Tecmo. And the Raiders had Bo Jackson. I just remember he was an animal, and you could just run away from everybody. And then it kind of became a rivalry between my family and I, because they were Chiefs fans, and I was kind of the black sheep being the Raiders fan. And I remember being down at Arrowhead, running around in Raiders gear while everybody else was cheering for the Chiefs for my family, and just it was a mess. So, and then as far as the Lakers go, I was a huge Shaq and Kobe fan, man. Watching those two play together and dominate, even going back to like Magic and all those guys. My brother and his best friend. My brother was a Bulls fan, and his best friend was a Celtics fan. So it was like, okay, I can't like either one of their teams and agree with anything they want to do. So let me pick the other best team, which would have been the Lakers. So that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, it was tough up here, in the basketball vein of things, because obviously the Packers sucked for a long time. Like most of my early childhood into my early teens, and then obviously the Brett Favre thing and Mike Holmgren, and since then it's been fair to decent.
Right.
There's been some success there.
Right.
But basketball, the Bucks just were not relevant enough in the NBA to even be shown up here. I mean, we're about 3.5 hours north of Milwaukee, but so we got WGN, so we just got all the Bulls games, and obviously at that time, Jordan, Pippen, Steve Kerr, Horace Grant, So you kind of felt almost by default, you were a Bulls fan,
right.
But the Shaq and Kobe thing. Have you? In this, I just actually got done reading "Relentless" by Tim Grover.
Yep.
Who was the one of the trainers of Kobe? Have you read that book?
I haven't read it yet. I've heard about it though.
It's as far as like an inspirational, motivational book. It's spectacular, but a lot of it, is about Tim and his training with Jordan, and then also with Kobe, and just talks about. Relentlessness is, was Kobe and Jordan and Dwayne Wade, all these guys that were just like off season. If there was an injury, they'd fly from LA or Miami or, into Chicago where Tim's training facility was. And just the way he talks about Kobe and how hyper focused he was, after games, dude, just like, everybody else is going out like, win or lose, they would either go out to party or they're going back home. And here's Kobe back, at the gym or, just continuing to work on his game. So if you're, looking for some motivation or looking for a great anecdotal stories about Kobe Bryant, that's Relentless is a great read. I just got done reading it, and
I feel like that's like what separated Kobe and Jordan from like the rest of the pack. I feel like they're just that character they had, that diehard cutthroat. I'm going to win, and I'm going to do anything it takes to win is what set them aside. So I need to check that book out for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And
on the list.
A lot of the talk about not just their on court stuff. Obviously, both Jordan the best probably ever, and maybe the best that will ever play, and Kobe is right up there in that conversation as well. But just the way the dudes handled themselves on and off the court, and professionalism and never sloppy, just everything they did. And it's a really cool, Kobe had some off court things that happened.
Right.
Jordan had some off court things that happened, but the book really like ties in this when you're that driven and when you're just that never say die, always moving forward. A win is a win, and then you're on to the next thing. Like you have this dark side inside of you where you need to find a place to go to find more of that drive. And sometimes that can lead you into things that society may deem as inappropriate.
Right. They don't like that sometimes.
If you're in Denver, Colorado, you never know what's going to happen. But it takes, but what you see is you've seen athletes, and you've obviously watched plenty of sports, and you watched all the things that happen and off the court. Sometimes that will happen to individuals. Maybe look at a guy like Tiger, and they will fall off the cliff.
Yep.
Like, I have been busted, and that is the end.
See ya.
Like
nothing.
Kobe and Jordan is like, I buy my wife a big diamond ring, and sorry about all the gambling. And then they went back to being just on fucking point. It's ridiculous.
Right. Water off the shoulders, man, for sure.
It's fine. I'll be back at the court tomorrow.
Yep.
But no, it's a great read. But want to talk to you about, this year, obviously, football season is upon us. We were obviously talking about college getting underway and NFL season starting next week. And Raiders were part of Hard Knocks.
Yes.
So you got to see plenty of your boy Gruden back.
He makes the show for sure, man. It's just It was kind of a bittersweet thing when they announced that because it was, I know it's a distraction. I know all the cameras are there to try and stir things up and make things out of nothing. But man, to get like that inside look at your team was super cool.
Right.
Now, the one thing I will say, I'm a diehard Raiders fan, man. Like I diehard Raiders fan.
Oh my
I got
God.
it on my
Just
chest.
showing the tattoo, man. That's dedicated.
But we have the most, without Antonio Brown being around, we have the most vanilla team like ever, dude. Like Derek Carr is just such a goody go-getter. Like I love him, man. Like
come on, guys, let's get together. We're gonna play some ball today.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it just really wasn't that entertaining. Besides Coach Gruden, man. Gruden, anytime that guy talks, that he could talk me into running through a wall. Like that guy just gets me amped up. Just anytime he's talking, I'm all ears, man. But the rest of it has just kind of been pretty vanilla. But I'm looking forward to the season, man. I don't think we're going to be super great, but it'll be nice to hopefully see us turn a corner this year and get a few more W's in that column and really turn it around, hopefully. So
see, and that's how you can tell, like, when a fan is a fan and not just like overt. I mean, obviously you have an obsession issue with the tattoo, but hey, but in all honesty, rock and roll, it's a badass tattoo. It's a badass logo. I get it. Like I put a giant green G on my chest and be like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
But having realistic expectations, like this is, this is our year. We got Gruden and we got Antonio Brown and we're not sure if he's going to play because the whole helmet thing and, in Green Bay over here, everybody, it's so like 50-50 split. Like, well, no, got this new coach and all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers like this huge douchebag. Like, we're not sure if he's going to get along. I'm like, dude's the fucking best quarterback in football right now. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just saying he'll figure out a way. But it's cool. It's good to see people that have a realistic outlook on how the season's going to go. Like, we're going to win some and we're going to lose some. And if things go our way more often than not, playoffs and who knows.
Now don't get me wrong. As soon as that first kickoff goes up, I'm the guy screaming, rip his fucking head off. Like I'm going crazy. But usually being a Raiders fan, I'm just really used to about week 6 or 7 that I'm really already pretty disappointed.
Off the fucking rails,
because we haven't been good. And here's what I say. I go, win or lose, we're still going to slash somebody's tires in the parking lot because that's just what Raiders fans are about, and that's what they do. So that's the take I have on it.
We're not sure if in the parking lot if we won or lost because like there's just this shit's on fire. It's
still just madness.
That's awesome. But no, looking forward to it. I mean, there's I'm Midwest. I mean, you've dealt with winters and shit, and it gets when you're a kid, it's like, sledding and all this fun and Christmas and all this fun stuff. Then you get to like a certain age and you're like, fuck snow, man. Like seriously, done. But there's always like football season is what you have to like, okay, this is going to get me through till in a perfect world, February.
Right.
But, and then there's like, then there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But other than that, it's just really much plain misery.
Yeah, just relying on that for sure. Absolutely.
We only got 6 more days and it's Sunday, dude, for real. Like,
just hide in our house and try and stay warm as much as you can.
That's pretty much it. But no, so taking you back to to growing up and where do you remember, when music first found its way? It's a part of everybody's life. It's the radio's on, or your parents have a certain influence on you. But for you, where did music first find its way into your ear? And you're like, I'm kind of into that.
So my dad, part of growing up was a truck driver, and we were always in the truck. And I'll never forget him. He'd put in AC/DC, he'd put in George Thorogood, and he'd put in Bob Seger and just a lot of that rock side. And then he'd put in the country side, and I'd kind of be like, but when the rock hit, like I was listening and I was loving it, man. And that's really where it all started. And then kind of from there, like my brother and I were always into the same kind of music. We had a really big bond as far as that goes. And he took me to a lot of shows when I was younger and really got me into it. Because as soon as I saw some of those live shows that we can get into details about, but as soon as I saw some of those shows, like it had me hooked, and it just had me engaged from the moment the music started all the way to the end. And then I started researching bands and I always loved it, man. It was awesome,
There's a pretty big band from the state of Iowa.
Yes.
That people have heard of. They're called Slipknot. Obviously, they've, and I'll get into, maybe, any influence that they had on you, just because of Wisconsin and Iowa. There's a lot of, it's like I guess there's some good things that have come out of here. We make beer and cheese, and you guys got corn and stuff down there, but it's not like, oh yeah, when you look at the coast, I think obviously they get a lot more attention. So you see a lot of these big bands that come out of LA, and yeah, granted, a lot of those guys are implants out of there. They're from Saginaw, and they took a trip out and ended up living out in LA. But Slipknot being one of those bands that really, Iowa, name of their first album, but really has found not just kind of bringing that really heavy metal sound to as mainstream as it will ever get, but has had longevity, and and Corey has done an amazing job, I think, of when the mask comes off and the Stone Sour thing, and the advocacy that he's doing now for for suicide prevention, and but for you, was there some influence there with those guys as you were growing up?
100%. To this day, Slipknot is my favorite band of all time. It just, and that's a lot of the reason is because I think that rock and roll, it really, growing up, it helped express, I kind of got to get my anger out and go to music it always had my back. And Slipknot, I'll never forget the first time I saw part of their set. They were playing this festival in Iowa, and it was all top 40 bands. They had no reason to be on this lineup at all. And they came out and people were just mind blown. What is going on? What is this madness? And it was so angry. And I think that was probably what got me into the heavier side, is listening to them and kind of how they did things. And then the second time I saw them was 99. And they were playing in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And the show was insane. It was called the Pledge of Allegiance Tour. And it was Slipknot, System of a Down, Rammstein, and American Head Charge. Jeez. And I literally was in the mosh pit, scared for my life. I think I was a freshman in high school, just going crazy, and it was so packed and so full and sweaty, and it was crazy. And after that, I was sold. I was like, it's something different. It was on a whole nother level from that point. So
yeah, Head Charge. They were from Minneapolis, so we had a chance to interact with them a lot, and one of those bands that they were right fucking there. Their toe was on the fucking diving board, and and I'm sure bands that you've been in and bands that you've known, things happen, and that's it. Just a lot of tragedy within that camp that's happened in the last decade or so. But for you, finding your way into a band, what was the first gig that you recall throwing down?
Oh gosh, man. So with the sport, kind of moving the sports into the music thing, and that's why I was glad we talked about that, because I ended up going to college to play college basketball. And when I went to college, I met Dan and Casey, who were playing college football at the time. And that is when we started the band, and it was more at that time just kind of for fun and shits and giggles, to be honest. More to get drunk on the weekends and try and pick up girls,
Yeah.
But
college shit, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up meeting those guys, and then we just started playing college gigs. We started off playing on the weekends out there, and then when we all graduated, it was kind of I'd kind of lost my passion for sports at that time. I was really over it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd finished with my degree, but I didn't want anything to do with that, and I just loved doing music so much. But yeah, we would have a lot of fun. We would just have a really good time. And then we kind of, from there, moved into Omaha, because we were living outside of Omaha, moved into Omaha and really started to take it seriously and kind of see where it would take us. So,
yeah, tell me about the Nebraska days.
Oh man, college was fun, man.
Yeah.
When we moved out there, I didn't know what to expect. I was the only kid out of my class to go out of state to college, so I thought it was a huge deal, when really I was going to Blair, Nebraska. It was the exact same thing. It wasn't different at all.
It's eerily similar to where I just left.
Yeah, I was like, this looks oddly familiar.
Cornfields and shit. Yeah, I got you.
But I think back at my college experience, and I can't imagine going to school with thousands of kids, and
right.
we were just in this little small suburb town of Omaha, and we had a blast, man. We had so much fun. We made the best of the opportunity that we were given there, I feel like. So that was cool to look back on it and see that, because it also stinks that our college doesn't exist anymore. So it closed down like probably 8 years ago, I think. So it's not even a college anymore. I actually just got some pictures. Casey was up on campus, and it's like everything's boarded up. People walked in and just they could take whatever they want. And it was madness. So, but we made the best out of it. It was great.
Last person to leave lights the match, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Out.
Go in, take whatever you want, and just trash it.
So Screaming for Silence, obviously we talked about kind of the initial formation with Danny and Casey from the college days. Tell me about, trying to put this band together and really try to take it to where this is what we're going to do. We're going to be a band that puts out original songs, which is, first and foremost is probably one of the tougher things for any band to do, because it's much easier to get gigs playing at the hotel bar, covering Seeger.
Yeah, absolutely.
The difficulty comes in, originality. And I mean, even if you do watch, and we watched like one season of like The Voice because the local guy was on there, but they preach that, like, well, don't do an original, do something that people know and can relate to. So that's a challenge in itself. But then to take it from a point of, we're going to do originals, we're going to go out and we're going to put music out, we're going to tour, we're going to do trying to get on the festival circuit. Kind of run me through how the Screaming for Silence, the early days, progressed. Yeah.
So when we first started, we were on that cover bandwagon. Mm-hmm. And, the thing with cover bands is they get paid really well. So we're in college getting paid really nice to play these gigs. But we wanted to do something different. We didn't want to go down that path. That's something that from the very beginning we had made very clear. So we wrote a few original songs, and we would always milk them into our set somewhere. And it got to be, I thought things were going well when people were like, I really like the original song more than the covers you play. Mm-hmm. Like, you guys should expand on that. So we kind of were glad we were going in that direction and had some positive comments and reinforcement from that. And then, we started playing the scene and started getting in touch with some of the bands, and we always made it a point. One thing we always wanted to make a point of is no matter what, we did everything 110%. If we were going to be on a show, we were going to be out promoting, we were going to be talking to as many people as we could to get to the show. And I think people started to notice that. People started to come out to the shows to hear all of our originals. And then the radio station from our local town got involved and kind of really helped us out and got behind us. And she's very hard to impress, but she just noticed the work we were putting in and that things were working. So
was there, when you made it, because I imagine at some point you kind of have to make a choice about, is this something that we're just, are we doing this? Are we kind of, it's very easy. I shouldn't say easy. It's not. It's very challenging to have a full-time gig, whether it's doing an 8 to 5 or doing shift work, and then booking gigs on the weekend, and then trying to incorporate some travel in there. But obviously, when you start getting some attention from local radio stations, and that tends to expand, they obviously have some connections and things like that. When was the decision made to, like, all right, well, let's jump on this horse because you've ridden one before and see how far it's going to take us?
So, like, when we got out of college and we had moved into town, and then I'll be a little more specific. We actually sat down with there was a guy in a band called Emphatic. His name's Justin McCain, who's now in a band called Through Fire that is doing awesome things right now. He helped us out a ton and was always a very good mentor for us, and is one of my really great friends. I consider him a best friend. And we sat down, we wrote a song together that's called Separate. That was really the song that really kind of started things off for us and took it up a notch, I feel like. And we wrote that song with them. The radio station there started playing it, and it kind of started to spread a little bit. And at that point in time, we were all like working jobs, but they were all jobs that we knew were just to kind of fill in and help make some money and pay the bills while we were really focused on this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this was a good or a bad thing, but at that point in time, we all lived together. So all 4 of us at the time were living in the same townhome, and it was just madness, just absolutely crazy. But the time of my life, man. And then it was weird. We kind of all moved out, and I thought for a moment it was going to be over with. And the gal from the radio station called us, and she says, I want to sit down with you guys. Let's have a talk. Mm-hmm. And she pulled us together and was like, you guys have something really cool here. Like, I think that you should give it one last shot and just see what happens. And then it was like, lighting the match and dropping it, dude, and it just exploded. Like, then all of a sudden we got offered a tour. The first tour was absolutely awful, but we were out on tour. We were driving 8 to 10 hours a night, but that got us out on the road, and then, man, it just was a real big snowball effect from then. So it was awesome, man. Gosh, man, just thinking about it now, like, just making me understand. I'm like,
memories of the way we were. I think when having 20 years in rock radio and getting to go, interact with bands on so many different levels and in so many different points of their career. And I think until you get to this, it almost feels like an imaginary level.
Right.
It's when we get a chance to see, or when fans get a chance to see a band that's on tour, whether they're the opening act or they're co-headlining or they're the headliner, like, people come out and they're at that show. Doors are at 6. They get there at 7. Couple of cocktails. Blah 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 blah. Watch the band. The band's having fun. Yeah. Ooh, they're signing autographs. Sign with the band. Then they go home. What I think you have now is, like, really when, like, the labor starts.
Right.
You guys aren't running with a bunch of people that are hauling your shit out. You're helping the drummer tear his kit down because God knows they need all the help they can get. And then it's pack up, and then it's drive to the next town. It's the one guy that's got to stay sober so that you can get to the next town. Yep. And especially in those early years, that is really, like, one of the bigger tests, I feel, for a band, because not only are you having to put those long days in, and if you're, dedicated like Screaming for Silence has been, it's not get to the next venue and then sound check and chill and eat. It's call the radio station, get a hold of them, stop out, do a thing, do an acoustic, or do an interview, pictures, all that stuff. It's so constant, and so I think to get kind of through that initial trial period is probably one of the bigger struggles that a band has to go through.
I feel like 9 out of 10 that makes or breaks the band. I feel like I can't remember, is it the guy from Kiss or somebody that said, like, it's just the matter of fighting through those years that keeps bands together. If you make it out on the other side, you're going to make something out of it, but you got to get through that first break. And man, it's taxing. It was definitely taxing, and it definitely took a toll on us. But, I think we all had the drive that we wanted to keep doing it. You play a show, you pack up, you go to a city where nobody knows who you are.
Right.
And you show up, and some nights you could play in front of nobody.
Yeah.
And that's just the worst feeling ever. Like, what am I doing here? Like, we could be playing the same thing in the garage, and I could go home and sleep in my bed the next, get up the next day, make some money. But, like, we didn't want to do that, man. We wanted to keep going. And, I think one thing that people always have said about us that is my favorite thing ever is that we were very hardworking, and we were relentless with not wanting to go home. We always wanted to be out on the road and keep building that name and keep growing our family, that Screaming for Silence family. So, and
that's, the thing about getting through those times, and this can be translated into to life in general. But when you're going through all of those, playing in front of nobodies in like empty venue, dudes at the bar, like, what the fuck is going on here?
Who's this? Right.
But still trying to hone in on your craft, and then knowing the rigs, and the rules of the road, and trailers that break. I mean, I don't know, as many bands as I follow, you see these bands that have roadside issues all the time, and that, unless you're selling 100 t-shirts or 200 t-shirts a night, it's tough to come across that funds. But I think when you get through that, and you when you approach another challenge, 2 years down the road, you go, this is bad, but it's not like, Kennesaw, that was horrible. Remember, we got through that shit. We can get through this. So it kind of calluses your wherewithal to get through those kind of things when you've been able to push through it, especially in the early years.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Yeah. I mean, some of those beginning shows, I'll never forget being stranded on the side of the road in Louisiana in a van with no air conditioning, broke down, trying to push it into the gas station, and just sweat dripping off us. And I was thinking in my head, like, if it gets worse than this, I'll probably quit. I'd probably throw in the towel, because this is awful. We were on, like, our third van. Like, it was just brutal. But man, we made it. We made it. We battled through, and we always banded together. And one thing I'll say about us is we we hardly ever fought. Like bands talk about, like, I've seen bands get in fist fights before. I've seen them blow up at each other in venues in front of fans. And like, that was one thing that about us is that like, we never broke like that. We always kind of stayed tied together and really banded through it, you know, army of band of brothers or whatever.
Survivors, man. Fucking survivors.
Absolutely.
You know, it reminds me when you talk about, and this isn't, you know, necessarily a mechanical issue, but one of the times you guys were up at Rockfest, and I've noted to bring this story up because we've chatted about it on several occasions, but not on this platform before. We were all jacked up, and we were texting each other back and forth, and I was making fun of Casey, and we'll talk about that story from the previous year at Rockfest. But you know, you were late getting there, and we finally hooked up, and I was like, "What's up, dude?" And you're like, "All my shit's gone." I'm like, what? Like you fucking lost the trailer? You're just here in a van, and you're gonna, you know, what are we doing? Fucking buckets and banjo set here. Like, so something happened where the door of the trailer flew open, and nobody else's shit fell out except for yours.
Nope. My bag comes flying out. We turned into this. It was a busy street. We were somewhere in Milwaukee, headed up there, and turned into a busy street. It flies out in the street, and we caught it. But it was so busy. The street was so busy, we couldn't. We parked. We all get out to run out and grab it, and like literally, it was like straight out of a movie, like straight out of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where somebody driving by hits my suitcase, and it gets stuck under their car, and just they take off
down the road.
I'm like chasing them down, like trying to, and like a few things fly out. I think my pair of jeans flew out. And one of my cutoff T-shirts flew out, and that's what I wore the rest of the weekend. All of my shit was gone, just gone. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst."
Hey, that's not totally true, because I think dug through some of my shit, and we had some station T-shirts. We're like, "Here you go, have some stuff."
Absolutely, and I remember you guys had little gift bags for us at that time, and it couldn't have been more perfect because it had like deodorant, toothbrush,
fucking black socks,
pregnancy test,
the essentials, people, black socks and pregnancy tests.
It was amazing. So it couldn't have come in at more of a better time. And I will say that I told the story on stage that night when we played, and it was pretty cool. Like all the bands that come up and be like, "Hey man, here's a T-shirt. I hope you make it through the weekend and the rest of the tour." And it all worked out, man.
You're like, "I don't even fucking like you guys, but thank you. This is great. I don't like your sound."
Who are you again?
This is great. Wait, I should be promoting my own goddamn band. Oh, wait, that's taking money out of merch. Don't take money out of merch, Zeb.
Right, yeah, absolutely. We couldn't afford that at that time.
No, it was, we did those gift bags, and we started doing this, we were at Rockfest. I think we did 8 years out there, before I left radio. And when you start to develop a relationship, and I kind of talked about the understanding of what it's like to be below that level where somebody's fucking making sure you have clean black socks every day and all that shit. And we just started, when we developed a relationship, you guys and a bunch of other of the bands that we knew, and you start to have conversations like this, obviously not on a podcast or in a radio interview, but you start to hear those stories of the road, and you understand that living in a Walmart parking lot or sleeping, outside of XYZ buildings for the night, and you're like, what can we do that's this? It may not get you very far. 4 or 5 guys in a band and somebody who's hauling equipment around. You got 5 or 6 toothbrushes, and you got some. It's just shit that you're like, hey, that actually will get me.
It helped.
Maybe laid. Maybe it'll get me laid. That's really what our end game was.
Because if we didn't have the toothbrushes from you,
right,
who knows who wasn't brushing their teeth? I know deodorant was in there, so that deodorant probably lasted Casey like 3 years, because I think he wears deodorant like once a week. So
one layer, and he's fucking good, man.
Yeah, he's good. He'd smell himself and be like, I got some deodorant now at least. So
but no,
that was perfect, man. Perfect.
That was one of our favorite things, and one of the things that I really truly cherished about my radio career is that when you get to know somebody on a personal level, and the struggles that they're going through, and you have the ability to do what you can to kind of help their career out and further their journey, is we started to develop relationships with bands that we called tangible, that were real, that existed in a vein where not only us as radio personalities and then friends, but also listeners and fans that would come out to the show, and even fans that weren't fans, but they saw you, maybe because because of the station or because of something that we had done, and they became fans. But you guys you're real. Like you're, even though you're 7 feet tall and you like, where's Zeb? There he is over there. And you're still a real, human being. And you will go and you will sign autographs after a show, and you will wait till the last fan is gone. We developed so many of those relationships with bands that were below that level of what we call the untouchables. Who if they show up, you better be like prepared to get a red carpet rolled out. What's this shitty bag full of deodorant? I got, I have my own brand of deodorant. I don't need your shit, your dollar store fucking old stuff, Old Spice stuff, man.
Nose up in the air kind of guys sometimes.
What market?
No, and we appreciate that so much, man, because especially like when, we talk about getting through some of those struggles and hard times, and you guys really, like, I'll never forget, you were literally the first station outside of our hometown that played The King is Crowned.
Right.
And I'll never forget that. And you kind of took us under your wing, man. And like, it's amazing because we weren't there yet, but you giving us a shot, man, made us feel like we had a shot and like we could really do something. And it was great, man. So we'll always appreciate that. So thank you and your missus for that.
There's, when you get too deep into the industry, and it's things that I've talked about on all my podcasts I've done with guys that are in bands, is there's almost a steel curtain, not to bring up the Steelers, but there's a steel curtain that it really sucks when a lot of radio stations out there across the country, there's not somebody in a chair who has the opportunity to put something in like The King is Crowned, or play a band like Royal Bliss or Wayland, or early stuff from like Red Sun Rising when they first came out, and we jumped on board right away. It's just like, until you get here, you can't come to, like, you're outside of the door of the party, and the security guards are keeping you out. And so a lot of stations in the country are like that. And especially when you talk about big conglomerates, whether it's the iHearts of the world or Cumulus, they're programmed by one guy, and he's playing, shut up. I want to say shut up and play the hits, but shut up and play the big five, and then fill in the rest with, really well paid for up and comers.
Right.
I didn't get paid. Otherwise, I'd be in the Caymans, living the dream.
Right.
But
absolutely.
To be able to have some influence on getting a band into a festival, or having them get some radio play, and whatever that led to, if it leads to a download, if it leads to, hey, I'll check these guys out, I'll like their Facebook page, and we know how valuable that digital media can be. It was always good to see, success happen with those bands, because you knew you had some part of it. And when you develop something like, the rapport that we had, I mean, we'll get into the story of losing Casey. But that was just kind of like, that was like the first weekend that we had met. We'd done some stuff obviously on the phone and at the station, and with The King is Crowned and stuff. But when we first hung kind of uncomfortably all weekend. We're like, well, you guys don't have a gig tomorrow. I might as well just fucking stay.
Let's just hang out. Yeah.
But that's, that became more important, I think, than playing the top five on repeat, because that's what rock was supposed to be. Rock radio was supposed to be like, let's introduce you to this band, and let's get you hooked on this band, and whether it was local or regional or just a band that was like, hey, we're from, XYZ Florida, and we have a really cool song. And so it was cool to be a part of, when The King is Crowned came out and the success behind that, and then getting you guys up to Rockfest a couple times, and the fucking wild shenanigans that happened up there.
Always one of my favorites. Always one of my favorites. So crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy.
So we're and we'll get back to a lot of this stories of our misguided adventures. Right now, where's the band at? In the current state. We kind of talked about this before the podcast started. Is life happens. People fall in love. People have babies. A lot of times those things can, I don't want to say mess up a flow, but it seems like Screaming for Silence has and you even referenced it, this brotherhood of dude, that's it's cool. You be happy here and you be happy here. Yet at the core, it's still stronger than ever.
I mean, it started probably, I mean, it's been, I think, about 5 years since, man, we felt like, you know, kind of picking up where we left off with the King is Crown started hitting, and things were going really well. And we have always been an independent band, but, you know, we really, to go into the industry side of things, like, we had some opportunities that were going to change things for us and really take our career to another level. And I'll never forget, we drove out to New York City. We showcased for a label. They loved it. Everything was great. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. You know, we're setting dates with the producer we had worked with that, you know, his name's Eric Ron, that, you know, is fantastic and on top of the world right now. And just, we were on cloud nine. Like, nothing could have taken us down at that point in time. And just, it was like we'd go a month and everything's still going to happen. And then another month and be like, we're still going to do this. It's just taking some time for everything to go through. And then it was like a half a year later where finally we were realizing, like, man, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And we, you know, at that point in time, I think we kind of got bitter. We were kind of we felt like we had been jaded, like we had, you know, played all our cards right and everything was supposed to happen. And I could just feel it, that we were kind of starting to burn out a little bit. Like, being on the road, we kept pushing it and pushing really hard. And so I think we had all kind of come to terms with it was just time to take a little break at that point in time. So we kind of took our break, and then, you know, we recorded the House of Glass EP and kind of toured on that. And just it just, not that it fiddled out, but we were like, all right, we need to take a little, like, we need to all take some time in our personal lives and catch up. Because that's one thing that, you know, we all missed out on. When we graduated college, we went out on the road and toured and played rock and roll music while everybody else was finding real jobs and stabilizing their lives and getting married. And then I think everybody was kind of ready to give that a try. So, you know, it's awesome to see what's going on with all the guys. And you're completely right that we're all so happy for each other and personally happy in our lives. But, you know, we still, anytime we get together, it's like back to business, man. We all look at each other in the same room again, and it's like, all right, let's do this. Like, it's time to go. So, yeah, for sure.
The industry is, and I didn't know the story about the New York trip, and that's, you know, there's so much. I'm trying to think of the appropriate word to use here. Bullshit.
Right.
In the industry. And it's there are some bands that have quote unquote made it that are less deserving of that level of success than bands that are, again, right there. They're going to the meetings, they're set. You know, here we are, we've busted our ass and broken axles and lost clothes and all the things that you have to go through to get to that point, just to get to the meeting. It sucks to see, you know, when you put hard work in and you put dedication in, and really you sacrifice years of your life. And not that sacrifice maybe is a bad word, because you will always cherish those. You will always remember the memories will always be there. But
100%.
You put the grind in, you know, you put the hours in, you songwriting and getting music out and doing it on your own and booking your own shows and then to get to a point where you're like, you can exhale a little bit.
Right.
And then somebody kicks you in the nuts and you're like, well. You know, sometimes a break is, and I don't even think that it doesn't feel like you guys went on a break. It just feels like there was an exhale to be okay, we pedaled to the metal for so many years.
Right.
And, you know, this didn't work out. Let's explore some other things. And really it feels like all that stuff does when life happens and interjects itself, especially in the music industry, is all you find different stories and you find different reasons for writing and different reasons for performing and probably takes you, you know, probably levels you up a little bit, you know, when it's time to go around again.
For sure. And definitely we were getting to the point where it was all about the business and that's all we wanted to do. And it kind of made it, you know, took the fun out of the, you know, we're here to, you know, write rock and roll and kick ass, you know, and not worry about all that stuff. And it was good to get back to that. When, you know, with the House of Glass EP, that's kind of what we went back to. And we were all much happier that way, I feel like. And I just, I mean, like I said, we all kind of had that bitter moment. Like you said, you know, taking that exhale was exactly what it was, for sure.
So it's what are we in? Almost football season. So we're in the fall.
Yep.
It was a very busy summer for you guys as far as the personal life stuff goes with some of the band members. What is there a plan? Is there a, hey, obviously when you have, when people have babies and people fall in love, they need some time to, consummate or whatever it is that people do these days. I've been married so long it doesn't even I don't remember what that's like anymore. But
don't even think about it, all right?
Yeah, I'm like, are you home? No, I don't even know if she's home or not. It's fine. But you can always tell with somebody that they have a drive and a passion and like, yeah, this is what I do. You'll find things to fill the gaps. I know you sling drinks and you get people drunk. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. But that is still, that fire still burns within you. So what's the the next step for you, for the band?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we were fortunate enough. We played it's been a few weeks ago, I guess, that we played, and it was great to see everybody, to get us all in the same room, and then we always kind of gets the fire burning, and what is next, and next year is actually a really big year for us. That'll be our 15th year anniversary as a band for Screaming for Silence, which is crazy. I hate to date ourselves, but
old man.
Yeah. But we've talked about that we really want to make that a big deal and try and get out and see some of those fans that we haven't seen for a few years now and really try and get out there and, maybe try and put some new music out and some new content and really freshen things up a little bit. And just, we've always talked about I don't think it'll ever go away just because we are so close,
right?
That even if we play one show a year, we're still going to be Screaming for Silence. But I think next year we kind of decided that we'd like to try and get out there a little bit and see some people and hopefully, let everybody know we're still around and just celebrate, man. Like it's been crazy that it's been that long and that we've kept it going.
There's something to be said about a step back from the light. There's some artists out there that they're never really gone. Like it feels like you, and that does create, with listeners, with fans, maybe outside of the really hardcore dedicated ones that need to have that in their lives. But if you take a step back from what is the record cycle of put a record out, tour, record, put a record out, tour, record, especially in a day and age now where if you after this gets done and you finish your Busch Light, shameless plug, Busch Light, I'm just saying.
There we go.
And you're inspired to write, or you like this song comes to your mind and you call up the guys, you're like, hey, I got this thing and it's rattling around in my head and and all of a sudden in a week's time, you could have a song theoretically, just
absolutely,
throwing ideas that could be in your fans' ears,
for
just
sure.
like that. But what I think when you're able to kind of spit those things out here and there, and it's the same way with, I think, doing shows. You sprinkle it in here. You do an end of summer bash on August 2nd, like you're trying to fast forward through the best time of year, assholes.
Yep.
but I think when you take it out of everybody's vision for a second, and you come back and you can rejuvenate yourself, you can kind of get off the road, you can kind of relax and do my podcast, which I really appreciate.
Yes, thank you.
But then to be able to come back, especially with an anniversary year, and just kind of go full out. I mean, you've had a chance to let the engine cool a little bit and fire it up when it needs to be fired up.
For sure. And we look forward to that. Like I said, it just keeps it going. And like I said, we'll be one of those bands I don't think will ever go away. And, I get that all the time. Like I get tons of messages, and I don't blame people for asking, I guess, just because it got to be where we were touring so hard that they just thought it would never stop, I guess. I don't know. Like, that was just the standard. We were always on tour. We were always trying to play. And then when that stopped, people were like, oh, they're broke up, they're done, when that necessarily wasn't the case. But so, we try and, play these shows throughout the year to remind people we are still around and that we do still exist and we still like to play shows and love rock and roll. So
Zeb had to take time to grow that fantastic beard.
Yes, absolutely.
These things take time, man.
They do. Lots of patience, right?
That is, that was the one thing that my wife was kind of against it when I made the executive decision. She approved. She approved my decision. To kind of look homeless for a while, and it really, I think, teaches you this art of being patient.
Right.
And
right.
maybe that has it has the same connotation in where the Screaming for Silence band is yet. You know, you're just like, you know what? Just give it some time.
Yeah, just need a little bit of time. It'll come around. It'll fill in.
Just
get
you
rid
wait.
of those bald spots.
It's gonna be fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
It's gonna be amazing. I don't want to let you go without telling our original story of when we first met at Rockfest. God, that's been 5-6 years ago. It's in that wheelhouse of
5 or 6 for sure.
It's been a minute. So we'd obviously had conversations through the station and with the single, and knew you guys were coming to Rockfest. We did an interview before you guys came up there, and this is the year before the Great Escape of Zeb's Suitcase. This is the year of the Great Wedding.
The wedding, yes.
See, you guys were hanging around the booth, and there was this lady who had contacted me through the station weeks prior to Rockfest, and like I had some carrot to dangle over the festival, like, yes, and while you're at it, why don't you make that stage bigger? And this girl Carol, who is from Louisiana, from New Orleans, really had her heart set. Huge rock and roll fan. Really had her heart set on getting married to her Prince Charming. On stage, on the main original thought on the main stage at Rockfest, like right before, I don't know,
Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah, right before Avenged Sevenfold, and obviously Wade and I, the promoter, we're good friends, and I just kind of shot him this message. I'm like, so this is totally going to happen, right? And obviously in a joking way, knowing that, let's get production to shut down the stage for
to stop doing what they're doing and let this wedding happen.
Didn't quite work out that way. They did end up getting married up on the top stage, where you guys were playing that day.
Yep.
And so you guys were kind of in the booth, and Carol was there with her at that time soon to be husband, and I don't know how my wife and you and Casey, I had to be in the booth. All of a sudden, end up being a part of Carol's wedding. There are still some photos. There's one I'm going to try to find it and share it on my socials of you and Casey are kind of by each other, and he just has, obviously he's got the giant yellow mohawk, and he just has this look of what the fuck am I doing here on his face.
Oh man.
And so they get married, and the ceremony, is all, and then we ended up coming up to watch the end of your guys' set. And we hung out and watched whoever was on the top stage up there for a while. Somehow or some way or another, we ended up with Casey.
I'm sorry for that, by the way.
And we're like, hey, we're gonna head down to there's 3 or 4 different places to consume cocktails, including our RV. There was booze in the booth. There's another bar down on that had a bunch of cover bands down there, and he just kind of hung with us, and we're like, and we're like. We're all Wisconsin. This is, this is what we do.
Right.
Doing shots here, and somebody's like, hey, we got Jello shot. And Casey's just like, here's this, skinny white dude from Nebraska, doing shots with us. And we end up at one of the far bars down by the main stage. And we're doing some more drinking, because that's what we were doing.
Right.
And my wife and I are talking to a couple different people, and I turn around and Casey's a hard person to miss from the back. I mean, from any direction.
Right.
But all you see wandering up the hill in kind of a zigzag. You remember Weeble Wobbles? Remember what a Weeble Wobble was?
Yes. Oh,
This Weeble Wobble mohawk, just flowing back and forth, trying to find his way up the hill. And we did catch him the next day and apologized for how he was feeling, because I'm sure it wasn't great. He
kind of gets to a point where you just kind of got to corral him. You can't really tell him where to go or kind of how things are going. You just kind of got to hey, go, kind of go this way. And
well, we didn't want to abandon him. He felt like we brought our kid with, it's okay, no, who's got eyes on Casey? Because if we lose him, because I think you guys were probably parked up on the top of the stage. And I was like, oh, it's
Coop. If I had $1 for every time one of us had to babysit Casey Newsom and make sure that he was okay, we'd both be in the the islands.
We
man,
would. We'd be in the Caymans, man, just like reminiscing on. Remember that one time? Yes, we almost lost.
Remember when we were sick of you, so you had to go with Coop and his wife. Because
you know what? I do recall there was some ushering him along. Like we're like, oh, Casey's gonna come with us. It's like, okay, cool. Bye. See you guys later. Right, bye.
Yeah, have fun. Bye.
Like,
good luck.
Threw a tank top at me. Like, here, throw the Screaming for Silence tank top on. And then you can take him. I'm like, all right, cool.
Sure.
And then, but long story short, he's fine.
Yeah, he made it. He's good. He's good.
Fine. But thank you so much. For the time, for the stories. I find these. What this avenue has given me is a real insight to people want to know. Like people want to hear the bad stuff, the good stuff. Here's how I ended up here in a status check. But I know I appreciate the time. I know it's Friday night and.
Thanks for having me, man. I love it. It's great to catch up, and it was awesome, man. I love what you're doing. I love the platform. It's amazing. So we love it.
2020, 15 years of Screaming for Silence. We will. I better see your ass. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we got to get back up there. We got to rock it out. We made a post about where we should go, and we had a couple people say Wisconsin, so we need to get back up there for sure. So we appreciate all the support, man. Always one of my favorites.
I may be able to find you a spot to play.
Thank you.
I may know. But the deal is, don't fucking shave that beard, dude.
I'm keeping the beard, but the deal is you have to babysit Casey again. So
I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick here. No, he seems grown up and responsible now.
Yeah, he's grown up. He's grown up a lot. It's great.
I'm still those when the parents bring their kids to Disney World, they put them on those leashes.
That's exactly what he needs.
Hang on, I'm gonna jump on Amazon right now and get me a couple of those. Let's see, he's probably a medium.
It's probably named after him, I think.
it's called. Hey, get yourself a Casey Newsom.
Yeah, get the Casey Newsom, would you? Oh yeah, that little leash that drags your kid along. That's perfect.
If listeners of the podcast want to follow the band and find out what you guys got going on, especially for the big gear coming up next year, where can they find you guys?
Screamingforsilence.com, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You just type in Screaming for Silence and you can find us everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. I appreciate your time. Take care of yourself. Thanks. Take care of that beard. Keep on oiling that shit. You'll be good to go.
Yes. Great to catch up with you, man. I appreciate you having me on.